Hello and welcome to English Spark Official. I'm Zayden, joined as always by Alara.
Hey everyone! We're so excited about today's topic.
What if the absolute best way to teach someone a complex new skill, say a brand new language, is to actively, purposefully hide the fact that you are teaching them at all?
It's a totally fascinating premise. You just bypass all that resistance.
Yeah, that anxiety of being a student.
Exactly. You bypass that and tap straight into their natural curiosity instead.
Right. And that concept, that sort of educational sleight of hand, that is the pulsing heart of what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We are incredibly excited you're joining us because today we aren't looking at a traditional piece of media at all.
No, we definitely are not.
It's not a published book or like a scientific journal article. We have our hands on a behind-the-scenes strategic document. It's essentially an internal blueprint.
Right. And it's titled The English Spark Podcast Blueprint, Masterful Scripting Strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this because on the surface, this document is a highly structured set of instructions given to a creator.
Yeah, perhaps an audio producer or even an AI scriptwriter.
Right, dictating precisely how to build an English language learning podcast for a fictional channel called English Spark Official.
But the mission of our deep dive today isn't just to look at the mechanics of teaching English verbs.
No, absolutely not. What we're really going to do is unpack how this blueprint seamlessly blends high-level content strategy with, well, human psychology.
It is genuinely a masterclass in engineering attention.
Exactly. And we're going to explore this through a wildly specific case study that the blueprint actually mandates. It instructs the creator to script an episode titled Zero View Keyword Mining, Finding Fresh English Lessons.
Which is such an unexpected, highly technical concept to drop into a language learning curriculum.
Right. But here's the thing. Even if you, the listener, are a native English speaker and have absolutely zero interest in learning a new language, this blueprint is going to change how you look at communication.
Oh, without a doubt.
It reveals these incredible psychological guardrails for keeping any audience engaged, helping them retain highly complex information and ensuring they don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, whether you are leading a boardroom presentation, launching a marketing campaign, or just trying to explain a complicated board game to your friends.
Yes. The rules in this document are universal cheat codes.
They really are. It is the absolute definition of invisible architecture. When it is done perfectly, the listener never notices the scaffolding holding the whole thing together.
Right. And to understand how this scaffolding works, we have to start by looking at who exactly is meant to be walking around inside this building.
Exactly. The document establishes a very rigid target demographic. It's for learners ranging from the A2 level to the B2 level, specifically those operating in English-speaking environments.
So let's break that down, because those designations A2 to B2, they might sound like coordinates on a map to anyone outside the linguistics world.
Yeah, they do sound a bit technical.
What does that spectrum actually look like in terms of human capability?
Well, those coordinates come from the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or the CEFR. If you picture an A2 learner, you are looking at the elementary level.
Okay, elementary.
Right. This is often referred to as survival language. An A2 learner can understand basic, highly predictable phrases.
So things they've memorized.
Yes. They can talk about their immediate family, they can describe their job in simple terms, and they can navigate a routine interaction.
So they can confidently walk into a cafe in London, order a flat white, ask where the restroom is, and pay their bill.
Yes, exactly. But they are absolutely not debating the geopolitical impacts of the coffee trade with the barista.
Right.
They are operating heavily on memorized chunks of language. The cognitive load for an A2 learner is immense.
Because they're doing math in their head, basically.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They are still actively translating from their native language into English in their heads before they even speak.
Wow. Now, on the other end of this blueprint's target demographic is the B2 learner, which is the upper intermediate level.
Right.
And from what I understand about language acquisition, the jump from A2 to B2 isn't a small step. It's a massive leap across a canyon.
It is a totally different cognitive space. I mean, a B2 learner can understand the main ideas of complex text. They can handle abstract topics. They have a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers entirely possible without causing a headache for either person.
So a B2 learner could go to a dinner party, hold their own in a conversation about the themes of a new sci-fi movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But they might completely freeze up if someone suddenly uses a highly specific regional idiom, or if the conversation pivots to, say, the intricate legal jargon of a real estate contract.
Precisely. And this A2 to B2 spectrum is notoriously the hardest demographic to create content for. It's known as the intermediate plateau.
I've heard of this. It's an incredibly frustrating phase where you know enough to survive, but progressing past that point feels like climbing a greased wall.
That's exactly what it feels like.
You stop seeing those massive, satisfying daily leaps in ability.
Because the language you need to learn next isn't as easily quantifiable. You aren't just learning the word for apple anymore.
Right, Apple.
Right. You're learning nuance, tone, and complex grammar. If you create a podcast teaching the cat is on the table, the B2 learners will be insulted and turn it off.
They'll be bored out of their minds.
Exactly. But if you speak at the pace and vocabulary level of a native university lecture, the A2 learners will panic and abandon ship.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
So how does the blueprint reconcile this? I mean, how do you create one audio experience for both the survival level speaker and the dinner party conversationalist?
Well, the document dictates what we could call a gradual incline strategy.
Okay.
It places a strict governor on the language level. The prompt mandates, and I quote, start with simple vocabulary, then gradually increase difficulty.
It's essentially physical training, isn't it? It's cognitive weightlifting.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You don't walk into a gym having never touched a barbell and immediately try to deadlift 300 pounds. You would destroy your back, you'd be miserable, and you would cancel your gym membership.
You'd never go back.
Right. You start with the empty bar, you build confidence, then you add a small plate, then another.
That is exactly the mechanism at play here. The blueprint forces the script to begin with language that the A2 learner feels completely secure with.
It establishes psychological safety.
Exactly. The listener's brain is allowed to settle into the rhythm of the English language without spiking their cortisol levels.
Okay, I like that.
And then, once they are hooked and comfortable, the blueprint slowly adds the cognitive plates. A slightly more complex clause here, a higher tier vocabulary word there.
Okay, I love the theory, but let me push back on the reality of this.
Sure.
If you are constantly increasing the difficulty throughout a 25-minute audio experience, inevitably someone is going to hit a wall.
Well, yeah.
Let's stick with the weightlifting analogy. Eventually, the weight is too heavy and the lifter fails the rep. What happens when the blueprint introduces a truly difficult, abstract, B2 level word?
Right. How do you prevent them from quitting?
Exactly. How does this blueprint prevent the A2 learner from just throwing their hands up in frustration and feeling like they failed?
That is where the blueprint introduces one of its most brilliant, hard-coded rules. It explicitly states that any difficult word must be explained naturally within the conversation.
Key phrase being naturally within the conversation.
Yes.
Meaning absolutely no robotic dictionary definitions.
Exactly. We've all listened to an educational podcast where the hosts suddenly shift gears and sound like they are reading from an encyclopedia.
Oh, it's the worst.
Imagine if we were talking and I suddenly stopped and said, well, the situation was quite precarious. Precarious is an adjective meaning not securely held or in position, dangerously likely to fall or collapse.
It completely shatters the illusion of a conversation.
Right.
It feels deeply condescending. It's like a teacher tapping a ruler on a chalkboard. It yanks the listener right out of the flow state and reminds them they are doing work.
Right. So instead of a definition, the blueprint demands that the context clues and the host's banter do the heavy lifting.
Okay, so show me. How would they do that?
To use that same word precarious, a natural explanation mandated by this blueprint would sound something like one host saying, wow, he was standing right on the edge of that cliff while the wind was howling. That seems incredibly precarious.
Okay.
And the other host would immediately reply, yes, seriously dangerous. One wrong step and he was going completely over the edge. Definitely not a secure spot.
Ah, I see what's happening there. The listener hears the unfamiliar, difficult word, which is precarious.
Yes.
But within 2 seconds, they are fed a buffet of synonyms and situational clues. Dangerous. One wrong step. Going over the edge. Not a secure spot.
Precisely. The learner's brain, which is an incredible pattern recognition machine, subconsciously stitches that semantic network together.
Wow.
They realize, okay, precarious means dangerous and unstable. They have acquired the vocabulary without ever being subjected to a formal lesson.
And that bridges the gap between the two demographics perfectly. The B2 learner, who might already know the word precarious, just enjoys the dramatic story about the guy on the cliff.
Exactly. They're entertained.
And the A2 learner gets the definition seamlessly woven into the dialogue, so their cognitive load is supported. No one feels left behind, and no one feels talked down to.
It is an incredibly elegant solution, but relying on context clues to teach difficult words becomes exponentially harder when you look at the specific, highly complex case study the Blueprint assigns to its writers.
The keyword mining topic.
Yes.
This is where I think the strategy shifts from clever to genuinely audacious. Because if I were tasked with designing an English curriculum for people who are still struggling with vocabulary, my instinct would be to pick incredibly safe, universally understood topics.
How's that?
You know, like how to navigate an airport, or making small talk at a grocery store, describing your weekend.
Which is exactly what 99% of traditional language learning material does. And it is the exact reason why B2 learners are chronically bored out of their minds.
Right. But this blueprint violently rejects that approach. It mandates a specific video title that the script must be built around. Zero-view keyword mining. Finding fresh English lessons.
Let's just pause and appreciate the sheer audacity of choosing that topic.
It's wild.
Instead of teaching English through a contrived scenario about ordering a sandwich, the blueprint uses zero-view keyword mining. Now, for anyone who isn't deep in the weeds of digital marketing, keyword mining is a highly detailed analytical concept used in search engine optimization.
Right, SEO.
Yes, SEO. It is the practice of finding untapped topics on the internet, hyper-specific queries that people are typing into Google or YouTube where no one has created content to answer them yet.
It sounds like a syllabus for a Silicon Valley digital marketing bootcamp.
It really does.
And yet this blueprint is saying use this highly technical algorithmic concept to teach intermediate English.
What's fascinating here is how it treats the audience.
Because honestly, I think teaching SEO to someone at an A2 level sounds like a recipe for cognitive overload. If they're already struggling to remember the past tense of irregular verbs, isn't tossing search algorithms into the mix just going to fry their circuits?
It's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
But it actually taps into a profound psychological shift in how adult learning works. It's about respecting the intelligence of the demographic.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, these learners are adults. They have careers, they have hobbies, they are trying to build businesses or personal brands in the modern digital economy. By teaching them a real-world, highly valuable modern skill, like finding low-competition areas on the internet, the language lesson actually becomes secondary to the practical value of the information.
Oh, I see. It's a Trojan horse.
The Trojan horse, exactly.
You're hiding healthy vegetables in a delicious fruit smoothie. The listener opens the gates of their mind because they genuinely want to learn how to find untapped topics for their own blog or YouTube channel.
Yes, they eagerly bring the SEO knowledge inside.
And once it's in there, out pop all the complex English grammar structures, sentence phrasings, and vocabulary.
That is a perfect analogy. The motivation shifts completely. It moves from extrinsic motivation, like, I need to listen to this because I should practice my English, to intrinsic motivation. I really want to understand how this zero-view strategy works.
Wow, yeah, that's a huge shift.
When intrinsic motivation takes over, the brain's affective filter, the anxiety wall that blocks language absorption, drops significantly. They aren't studying. They are acquiring a cool new skill. The English is just the medium.
Okay, but if this fictional English Spark podcast is actually going to teach this concept while acting as a linguistic Trojan horse, they can't just talk about it in abstract terms.
No, they have to get specific.
The blueprint explicitly commands the writer to focus on actionable steps for finding low-competition keywords. So what are those actionable steps? How does one actually execute zero-view keyword mining? Because honestly, you've hooked my intrinsic motivation now. I want to know.
Well, it is a genuinely valuable skill. If we look at how the blueprint would force the creators to break this down, they would have to start by explaining the core engine of this strategy.
Which is?
It's the long tail keyword.
Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly makes a keyword long tail?
A long tail keyword is a highly specific search phrase that usually contains 3, 4, or even 5 words. The actionable step here is a mindset shift. You have to stop trying to compete for broad, single words.
Give me an example.
If you decide to make an article or a video about coffee, you are competing against Starbucks, Wikipedia, and every major culinary publication on the planet.
You are a drop of water in the ocean.
Exactly. That search term has millions of views, but the competition is insurmountable for a beginner.
Right. You will never rank on page 1 for coffee. You'll be on page 400.
Exactly. So the first actionable step the hosts of our fictional podcast would teach is using a platform's autocomplete feature to find the long tail phrase.
The autocomplete feature.
Right. You go to the search bar on Google or YouTube, you type in a broad term like coffee for, and then you stop. You let the algorithm suggest the rest based on what people are actually typing.
Okay.
The drop-down menu might suggest coffee for acid reflux or coffee for indoor plants.
Wait, coffee for indoor plants is a fascinating pivot.
Right. It's highly specific. And that leads to the next actionable step, verifying the zero view or low competition aspect.
How do you do that?
You take that long tail phrase, coffee for indoor plants, and you actually execute the search. What you are analyzing now are the results. If the top results are articles from 8 years ago, or videos made by tiny creators with very few views, or if the content doesn't actually answer the specific question,
Then you've struck gold.
yes, you have found a low competition keyword. The autocomplete proves people are searching for it, but the existing content is weak or non-existent.
You are actively looking for the gap in the market. That's brilliant. Now, the blueprint doesn't just ask for steps. It specifically mandates that the script must provide 3 real-life examples of beginner-friendly search topics.
Right.
If I am an A2 listener trying to grasp this, what kind of examples are the hosts going to give me to pull this concept out of the clouds and ground it in reality?
Well, they need examples that cross cultural boundaries but remain hyper-specific. So example number 1 might be in the culinary niche.
Okay.
Instead of targeting the saturated keyword, how to make coffee, a beginner-friendly, low-competition long-tail topic could be how to make pour-over coffee without a scale.
Oh, that is painfully relatable.
Isn't it?
Because the entire specialty coffee internet insists you need a $50 digital scale. So a normal person standing in their kitchen with just a plastic spoon is desperately searching for how to do it without buying new gear.
Precisely. The search intent is incredibly high, but the competition is drastically lower than just pour-over coffee.
Okay, what's example number 2?
Example number 2 could fall into the home decor or lifestyle space. Instead of searching something broad like houseplants, the beginner-friendly topic might be best indoor plants for dark apartments with cats.
That is fantastic. It hits 2 massive overlapping pain points.
Whoa.
Low natural light and plants that are toxic to pets.
Exactly.
I guarantee there is a dedicated group of apartment dwellers searching that exact phrase every single day.
Without a doubt. And for a third real-life example, they might pivot to the professional or productivity space.
Okay, hit me.
Instead of how to use Excel, which is arguably one of the most saturated topics on the internet, the low competition topic could be basic Excel formulas for tracking freelance income.
Oh, that's smart. It narrows the audience significantly, but the freelancers who do search for it are highly motivated and ready to engage with the content.
Exactly. They are ready to click.
Okay, so the hosts have successfully explained how to use autocomplete, and they've given these 3 incredibly concrete examples.
Right.
But if I am a listener, and I've found my weird specific phrase, like the Excel for freelancers example, how do I actually know if there's enough search volume to justify making the content?
That's the real trick.
Right. How do I check keyword search volume easily, especially if I don't have the budget for expensive enterprise-level SEO software?
That is the final actionable piece of the puzzle the blueprint requires. To teach the listener how to check search volume easily, the host would point to free, universally accessible tools.
Like what?
The absolute easiest method is utilizing Google Trends. You simply plug your long-tail phrase into Google Trends, and it generates a visual graph showing how many people have searched for that exact phrase over the last 12 months.
So it's super visual.
Yes, it gives you a relative interest score from 0 to 100.
So if you type in your phrase and the graph is a flat line at 0 for the whole year, that's a pretty good indicator that you should abandon ship and find a new keyword.
Exactly. But if you see consistent spikes, you know there is a hungry audience.
Are there any other free ways to check?
Yes, another incredibly intuitive free way to check volume is to analyze the view counts of the poorly made content that currently occupies those top search spots.
Oh, interesting.
If you search for that specific Excel query and the #1 result is a terribly lit video with awful audio from 2018, but it still has 40,000 views.
That is your undeniable proof of volume.
Exactly. The audience exists, they are clicking, but the competition providing the answer is incredibly weak.
That is genuinely practical advice.
Hmm.
But pause for a second and think about what just happened here.
What do you mean?
We just spent a significant amount of time deeply engaged in the mechanics of internet algorithms, search volume, and content strategy.
We did.
If we are intermediate English learners, our brains would have just effortlessly absorbed complex vocabulary like competition, long tail, autocomplete, saturated, and volume, all while our conscious attention was completely hijacked by the SEO lesson.
The Trojan horse delivered its payload perfectly.
It's masterful, but it also introduces a massive structural liability.
How so?
Well, think about the cognitive endurance required here. How do you keep an English learner engaged through a dense, 25-minute, highly detailed explanation of autocomplete, search volumes, and data analysis without losing them?
It's a lot to process.
Even if the SEO topic is fascinating, that is an immense amount of cognitive load for someone who is simultaneously processing and translating a foreign language. The brain is going to fatigue.
Which is exactly why the blueprint does not leave the pacing or the structure up to the writer's artistic intuition.
Okay.
The document dictates a rigorous, multi-step structural formula that must be followed in an exact, unbroken sequence.
Let me read this structural list from the source material because it is expensive. It requires a hook, a greeting using the channel name, an introduction to the topic, a core explanation, a deep dive explanation.
That keeps going.
Yeah. Then examples, which we just went over, a practice section, a recap, a practice assignment, a motivational closing, and finally, a call to action.
That is 11 distinct structural beats that must be hit precisely within a 20 to 25-minute window. It is a highly choreographed pedagogical dance.
But there is a bolded, capitalized rule regarding this 11-step structure that seems totally counterintuitive to me.
Oh, the labeling rule.
Yeah. The source explicitly says, do not label sections explicitly. Everything must feel like a natural conversation.
I would argue that is the single most important directive in the entire blueprint. The audio must flow seamlessly from the hook all the way to the call to action without the listener ever perceiving the structural seams.
But hold on. If we are talking about managing cognitive load for an A2 learner, won't refusing to label the sections cause massive confusion?
How do you mean?
If I'm listening to a complex lecture, it is incredibly helpful when the speaker says, moving on to part 3, real-world examples.
It gives my brain a momentary break and a clear, categorical box to put the new information in.
That's true.
If it's just one long, continuous conversation, isn't that just a wall of sound? Doesn't that risk confusing an A2 learner? You are absolutely right that categorization helps working memory. However, explicit labeling destroys the conversational illusion we discussed earlier. The moment a host says, and now it is time for the practice section, or let us move to chapter 4, the listener's brain stops treating the audio like a relaxed podcast among friends.
It instantly recategorizes the experience as a classroom lecture.
Exactly. The psychological defenses go up, the dread of homework sets in, the affective filter spikes.
I see. So explicitly announcing the sections strips away the intrinsic motivation of the Trojan horse and violently reminds them of the extrinsic motivation you are here to study.
Exactly. So how does the blueprint resolve your very valid concern about the listener getting lost in a wall of sound?
Yeah, how do they do it?
This is where the demand for masterful scriptwriting comes into play. Instead of using explicit labels, the hosts must employ natural conversational pivots.
Conversational pivots.
Right. These pivots act as subtle signposts, signaling a change in topic without ever breaking the fourth wall.
Okay, ground that for me. Give me an example of what a clunky explicit label sounds like versus a masterful conversational pivot.
A clunky textbook transition to move from the explanation into the examples would sound like, we have now finished the deep dive on keyword mining. Next, we will look at 3 daily life examples.
Right. It sounds like an automated voice on a training module.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a natural conversational pivot to achieve the exact same structural move would sound like one host suddenly asking the other, okay, so the theory behind finding these zero-view keywords makes total sense to me. But how would you actually use this if you were, say, starting a cooking channel from your kitchen tomorrow?
Oh, wow. That is incredibly smooth.
Right.
It perfectly signals to the listener's brain, hey, we're moving from abstract theory to practical, concrete examples, giving them that cognitive categorization they need. But it just sounds like a genuine question born out of organic curiosity.
Exactly. It prevents the audio from feeling like an audio textbook. It demands that theory is immediately paired with daily life, but it masks the transition behind natural human interaction.
The listener's brain gets the structural support without the textbook trauma.
The invisible architecture at work again.
But to make this completely natural, the blueprint doesn't just rely on structural pivots. It relies on very specific, mandatory interactive audio features.
Yes, the mechanics of audio pedagogy.
The document lists a mandatory set of listening and learning features that the writer must include.
Let's hear them.
These include repetition of key phrases, shadowing practice, where the host literally says, repeat after me, listening focus cues, like telling the audience to listen carefully, small interactive questions thrown at the listener, and short, natural pauses written directly into the script.
If we look at the psychology behind these features, every single one serves a highly calculated purpose.
Take the listening focus cues, for example.
Right. When a host is speaking and they suddenly drop their voice and say, now listen carefully to this next part, or pay close attention here, what is the physical reaction of the listener?
If I'm driving my car or doing the dishes with my headphones in, and the host says, listen carefully, I almost physically lean forward.
Exactly.
It acts as an auditory reset button. It instantly grabs my wandering attention right back to the present moment.
Precisely. It forces an artificial spike in engagement right before a crucial piece of vocabulary or a dense concept is introduced. It prepares the brain to receive beta.
That's fascinating.
And then there is the mandate for short pauses, but the blueprint explicitly states they must be written naturally, not timestamps.
What is the distinction there? What does written naturally, not timestamps, mean for an audio producer?
It means the scriptwriter cannot simply type pause for 3 seconds and expect the audio editor to just insert dead air into the track later.
Because dead air sounds like a mistake.
Right. Dead air in a podcast sounds like a technical glitch. It sounds like the app crashed. Instead, the writer has to build natural hesitations into the dialogue.
Like what?
A host might say, so the real secret to finding these keywords is, and then they take a genuine breath, maybe add a slight vocalization like an or a drawn-out well, before delivering the final thought.
I get it.
That natural pause gives the A2 learner a psychological second to process the vocabulary they just heard before the barrage of new words continues.
It's all about pacing. You are pacing the marathon runner so they don't sprint the first mile and pass out.
Exactly.
Now, the most overtly interactive mandate on this list is the shadowing practice. The blueprint actually wants the podcast host to instruct the listener to speak out loud.
Yes. Shadowing is a foundational language acquisition technique.
Right.
The learner repeats a phrase immediately after hearing it, attempting to mimic the intonation, the rhythm, and the exact pronunciation of the native speaker. It moves language from passive reception to active production.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of just describing shadowing abstractly, I think we need to actually demonstrate this blueprint mandate right now for the listener.
Oh, I like where you're going at this.
Let's show them exactly how the blueprint intended this to sound, integrating those exact actionable search phrases we discussed earlier.
I think that's an excellent idea. We can step into the roles of the English Spark hosts for a moment and lead the listener through a genuine shadowing sequence.
Let's do it. So if you are listening to us right now, yes, you, driving your commute or walking on the treadmill or sitting at your desk, we are going to do a quick shadowing exercise.
Don't be shy.
Right. I'm going to give you a listening focus cue. I will say a phrase, and then I will leave a natural conversational pause for you to repeat that phrase out loud.
We are going to build up the complexity of the sentence step by step.
Just like the gradual incline strategy dictates. Don't worry if it feels a little strange. Just trust the process and engage your vocal cords. Ready.
Listen carefully to the pronunciation.
Repeat after me. Search volume.
Right, so we give you a beat right there to say it out loud.
Good. Let's try another one. Repeat after me. Low competition keywords.
Excellent. Notice the emphasis on the word low. Low competition.
Now, let's combine concepts. Listen closely and repeat. Checking the search volume.
Awesome. Now for the full phrase we've been examining today, pay close attention to the rhythm.
Repeat after me. Zero view keyword mining.
Let's do that one more time, a little more naturally.
Zero view keyword mining.
Perfect.
Now, let's put it into a full, actionable sentence. Deep breath. Repeat after me. Finding low competition keywords is essential.
Fantastic.
And we're back. That was a textbook demonstration of the shadowing technique.
It was indeed.
Okay, I have to admit, executing that felt a little bizarre. But as the person leading it, I could actually feel the psychological pacing you were talking about.
You could feel the space it creates.
Yes. I could feel how those small built-in pauses give the listener's brain a necessary runway to catch up process the phonetics, and actively produce the language, rather than just passively letting the audio wash over them.
Exactly. Passive listening will only ever get you so far in language acquisition. To truly move from B1 to B2, you have to engage the motor cortex.
You have to speak it.
You have to get the physical muscles of your mouth used to the rhythm of the language. But you pointed out that it felt a little bizarre.
Yeah, it's strange.
And this brings up a crucial vulnerability in the blueprint. For this kind of overtly interactive practice to not feel cheesy, robotic, or like a condescending children's television show, the voices delivering it have to be perfectly calibrated.
Yes, if a booming, hyper-formal announcer voice suddenly commands you to repeat after me, you don't feel like you are learning. You feel like you're being interrogated.
Which is exactly why the blueprint absolutely does not leave the hosts up to chance. It moves into strict persona engineering.
The dynamics of Zayden and Alara. The document explicitly designs the host for this English Spark channel. It dictates that there must always be a duo, a male named Zayden and a female named Ilara.
Furthermore, it mandates their age, their tone, and their overall personality. They must sound between 20 and 30 years old. They must be friendly, casual, and distinctly modern.
It's fascinating to me that they specify 20 to 30 years old. Why not a wise 60-year-old professor figure?
It's a good question.
Wouldn't an older, authoritative voice carry more educational weight and credibility?
It might carry more traditional academic authority, yes, but remember the ultimate goal, which is lowering the effective filter.
Right.
A 60-year-old professor inherently creates a hierarchical teacher-student dynamic. A 25-year-old casual host creates a peer-to-peer dynamic.
I see.
It fosters what we call a parasocial relationship. The listener doesn't feel like they are sitting in a lecture hall. They feel like they are just hanging out with two smart friends at a coffee shop who happen to be explaining SEO to them.
And the dynamic between Zayden and Alara is rigorously regulated. The instructions demand balanced dialogue, ensuring one host never dominates the runtime.
Right.
But the most jarring part of this section is that the blueprint specifically tells the writer to use interruptions, reactions, agreement, and light humor. It explicitly says, like, real conversation, and notes that long monologues are completely forbidden.
And this is where the blueprint radically, almost violently, departs from the orthodoxy of traditional language education.
Right, and I have to push back on this on behalf of traditional language teachers everywhere.
Sure, Rod.
Isn't interrupting each other exactly what you shouldn't do when speaking to someone who is actively trying to translate your words in their head? Shouldn't you speak slowly, wait your turn, and not talk over each other?
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at what a language learner actually needs to survive in the real world, the answer is a resounding no. Yes, traditional textbook dialogues where person A speaks a full grammatically perfect sentence, stops completely, and then person B speaks a full grammatically perfect sentence are a pedagogical lie.
Pedagogical lie. That is a strong statement.
But it's true. They completely fail to prepare learners for real-world English-speaking environments because real human conversation is incredibly messy.
It overlaps.
It overlaps constantly. People step on each other's sentences. People throw in filler reactions like, oh, really? Wow, no way, right in the middle of someone else speaking.
Like, right, yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm literally doing it to you right now.
Exactly. You are actively listening and signaling your engagement through overlapping audio. By forcing Zayden and Alara to interrupt each other, to agree emphatically, to step on each other's lines slightly, the blueprint is teaching the listener the actual linguistic rhythm of real English.
It teaches the flow.
It teaches turn-taking mechanisms. It demonstrates how native speakers use filler words as social lubrication or how they signal that they want to take the floor.
So if an A2 learner only ever listens to slow, sterile, perfectly separated textbook dialogue, their brain trains itself to expect pristine audio files.
Yes, and reality isn't pristine.
The moment they step into a noisy pub in London or a fast-paced office in New York, they will be completely paralyzed by the chaotic, overlapping frequencies of actual conversation.
Precisely. The blueprint artificially engineers the chaos of reality, but it strictly controls the vocabulary within that chaos. It is a brilliant linguistic simulation.
It really is. It's like putting a pilot in a flight simulator before making them fly the actual Boeing 747.
That's a great analogy.
They get to experience the turbulence of interruptions and overlapping dialogue, but they're still safely grounded by the controlled vocabulary.
Exactly.
Now, while the blueprint tells the creators exactly what to do with Zayden and Alara, the things it tells them they absolutely must not do are just as revealing about the underlying strategy.
Yes, establishing firm guardrails is just as important as establishing the creative goals. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the avoid list.
The guardrails of good content. The source material has a very strict list of prohibitions. I'll read them out.
Go for it.
Number 1, avoid complex academic jargon without explanation. Number 2, avoid robotic or repetitive phrasing. Number 3, avoid overly long paragraphs without interaction. And number 4, avoid difficult grammar beyond the B2 level.
If we synthesize these guardrails, we see that they're all designed to maintain a very delicate, precarious tightrope walk. The POMPS demands that the content be highly detailed and academic in structure, but explained in a simple, conversational way.
Right. You are allowed to teach the complex mechanics of finding fresh internet topics via keyword mining. You can talk about autocomplete algorithms and search volume analysis and long-tail strategies.
Yes.
But you cannot use the shorthand jargon of a Silicon Valley SEO expert unless you immediately pause to break it down naturally.
Exactly. If Zayden says you need to optimize your super features to capitalize on low KD long-tail queries, the A2 learner will instantly mentally log off.
It sounds like alien gibberish.
The effective filter slams shut.
To be fair, some native speakers would log off on that one too.
Yeah, very true. But if Zayden says, you need to look at the search page and find long, specific phrases where the competition is low, he has taught the exact same academic concept without violating the guardrails. He preserved the intellectual depth without sacrificing accessibility.
And that rule about avoiding overly long paragraphs without interaction ties right back to our discussion about the flight simulator and the pedagogical lie.
Right.
If Alara speaks for 2 solid minutes without Zayden chiming in with a uh-huh or a why, really, it stops being a peer-to-peer conversation and immediately devolves into a classroom lecture.
The parasocial illusion shatters.
And the final guardrail, avoiding grammar beyond the B2 level, is the ultimate safety net. You can push their vocabulary, you can teach them entirely new professional skills, but you cannot use highly complex, obscure grammatical structures that will fundamentally confuse their baseline understanding of the sentence.
Like the future perfect continuous, for example.
Right. The structural foundation must remain rock solid. So, bringing this all back around, what does this all mean for you? Why should you, the listener, care about the strict guardrails of a fictional English learning podcast blueprint?
It's a fair question.
Well, because these rules aren't just for language teachers. Whether you are presenting a quarterly financial report in a boardroom, explaining a new software process to a frustrated colleague, or creating your own content on the internet, these avoid rules are a universal cheat code for clear, impactful communication.
They absolutely are. If you avoid unexplained jargon, if you ensure your communication is interactive rather than a one-way monologue, and if you keep your sentence structures accessible, you will be a vastly more effective communicator in any language, in any field, with any audience.
It all comes down to radical empathy for the listener.
That's beautifully said.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've just taken.
We started by looking at what appeared to be a simple strategic document, a blueprint for a podcast, but we discovered that it is actually a highly sophisticated psychological mechanism for engineering human engagement.
We explored how it targets the vulnerable A2 to B2 demographic by using a gradual incline strategy, starting with simple cognitive weights and slowly adding plates, while ensuring any heavy vocabulary is naturally explained via context clues rather than robotic definitions.
And we analyzed the brilliant Trojan horse case study of zero-view keyword mining.
Hiding the vegetables in the smoothie.
Exactly. Showing how teaching a real-world actionable skill, like finding low-competition search phrases using autocomplete and checking search volumes on Google Trends, acts as the intrinsic motivation hiding the grammatical lesson. It respects the adult learner's intelligence.
We look at the invisible architecture of the 11-step blended structure, where explicit textbook-style labels are banned in favor of masterful, organic conversational pivots.
We even jumped into the flight simulator and practiced some interactive shadowing to feel how auditory cues and written-in pauses command our attention.
And finally, we examined the deliberate persona engineering of Zayden and Alara, discovering that scripted interruptions, filler words, and messy overlapping dialogue are not mistakes, but vital linguistic tools for preparing learners for the chaotic reality of actual human conversation.
It is a phenomenal blueprint.
It really is.
My final synthesis on all of this is that knowledge is most valuable when it is accessible. Society often confuses complexity with intelligence. We tend to think that if a lecture is dense, jargon-filled, and hard to follow, it must be profound.
Right.
But this blueprint proves the exact opposite. It proves that the absolute best education, the most masterful transfer of knowledge, doesn't feel like a lecture at all. It feels like a friendly, engaging conversation with peers that just happens to make you significantly smarter by the time it's over.
I couldn't agree more. And it leaves me with a final provocative thought that I want to leave you, our listener, to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We've just spent this entire time unpacking how a simple set of strategic instructions can perfectly engineer a highly effective, deeply human-sounding educational experience. It dictates the humor, the natural interruptions, the psychological pacing, the actionable steps, and the exact curriculum.
It creates a perfectly calibrated, infinitely scalable teacher.
Exactly. So if a simple one-page blueprint can so perfectly engineer this highly effective educational experience, perhaps executed by an advanced AI or a highly efficient team of audio producers, what does the future hold for traditional textbooks in classrooms?
It's a huge question.
What does the future hold for the standard one-size-fits-all classroom lecture, where a professor talks uninterrupted for an hour? Will all learning soon be this customized, this conversational, and meticulously designed?
It certainly seems possible.
The next time you listen to your favorite educational podcast or attend a seminar, ask yourself, are you just listening to someone talking, or are you looking at the matrix code?